principles of outside gardening are very, very close to the inside, but it's so much easier. When I go to my rose bushes and they have mildew and they have aphids, then I come inside and I say, oh, there's an aphid, I can pick one off. It's so much easier. Okay, we're going to talk about the basics of houseplants. And that begins with container, then there's soil. How do you water it? How do you fertilize it? Where do you put it? That's a big part of it. And then, of course, a few problems that come along the way. And if I have time, we can talk about the fun part, just how you can play with your plants. Okay, I didn't move forward on that one very well. Let's see. What is that up there?
Just 1 second. So, Kitty.
When I get my technical support, I'm going to set up, show you a few things. Okay, I'm on number 1. Let's start with number 1. How's that? Very nice. Okay, the pot. The pot ordinarily is a basic pot that you get at the store with the plant inside. They almost always have holes in the bottom. So that makes everything easy. So now we have a house plant, we're ready to go. Not quite, because there are other possibilities. There is the old-fashioned clay pot. Now the old-fashioned clay pot had the advantage of having a hole at the bottom, but it's also porous, holds the water and keeps your plant kind of uniformly wet, if that's the desire. Probably not so great for a cactus, but for most plants, the clay pot has got a lot of possibilities. Before I get into the glass container, I want to show you that even though you buy it and you're ready to go, you could do a little bit more. And that is to put a wick, something like a piece of a rope or a piece of string, a rag, tear it up into little pieces and make a wick so that the water comes from below and goes up into your plant a whole lot easier. It's got a little bit more control. So when you're setting up, you've got your pot, but then put in that wick before you put in the soil. We might even want to use a sponge. We'll talk about that in a minute. If you want to use ceramic or glass as a pot, let's see. Here is something right here. It does not have a hole, but you want to put a plant in there. So what you would do is put some gravel or my favorite marbles in the bottom so that your soil is above that. But the soil is going to drip down and get into all of your pretty marbles. So put a coffee filter there. So your dirt is above the coffee filter, and then you've got the marbles. Now you have a plant with a planter without a hole in the bottom. Well, what do you do when you've got too much water in it? Pour it out. So it kind of works so that you can be very creative and very clever and use some of your favorite things. Here's one of my favorite things, and this is a lovely teapot. Too pretty to put tea into, quite frankly. So I want to put a pot in it. I take the top off and I find that the hole is pretty small and my commercial pots don't fit in it, which would have been really easy. So what do? I get a plastic bag, put the soil in the bag, put some holes in it so that it'll drain. I now have a pot in the plastic bag that fits in here and kind of molds to the shape. Also put that gravel on the bottom or some marbles in the bottom so that the bag doesn't sit in the water. It's a little elevated. Sure enough, I watered the plant. I don't know, maybe too much water, pour it out. So that worked out rather well when I'm picking a style of what decorative thing do I want to do with my plant. There's another plant that's a lot of fun, and that's why I found these in a Walmart where you buy candles, and they're really for a patio candle. Put the candle inside and it makes a lovely light. But oh, is it a game changer for orchids? Because orchids do not sit in dirt. They grow in the air. They grow in a tropical forest. They wind around vines and trees, and they kind of take in the water from the air. They're not in the soil. So here we've got plenty of air going through. I put in my bark, which we'll talk about when we do the soil, and I wet the soil from the top, and it really runs out, definitely drains out, but there I am, and I've got a great orchid that will not get rotten from being in the water. To make it easier, this is actually an orchid pot, and it's got a little saucer so that when you do water it, it's pretty messy, and the water does get collected here. But a little bit of water collected might be a good thing because it does want moisture in the air. So the water from the bottom will kind of evaporate and give your plant a little bit of moisture. Let's do the soil. I've got a package of soil here, right here, and sorry to keep coming in and out the camera, but here is soil. It's kind of easy. You buy a bag of potting soil. That's right here. It's not enough. You really want to fix it a little bit if you're going to repot or put that little tiny potted plant that you bought at the store into a decorative larger container. So you want to get potting soil and fix it up a little bit. Well drained is the name of the game. You never have this plant sitting in water for too long because it just rots. It's too much of a good thing. So you want to put in this potted soil some sand, some very fine gravel, just to make it drain better. Okay, you might want to get a little fancy. They talk about used coffee grounds quite a bit when you're outside gardening. Can you use it for the inside garden? Actually, you can. A little bit, a teaspoon at most. You just want a few sprinkles of coffee grounds around the top of your soil, or maybe when you're starting to put the soil in, you mix it in. Okay, the trouble with the coffee is it doesn't want to get packed. It needs to be sprinkled. Okay, other things that you could use, let's see, I think I went a little too fast here. I go backwards. No. Let's see if I can go backwards. No, can't do it. I think I'm way ahead of myself there. Okay, so back to the soil. Here we have an African violet mix, a little different from potting soil. So if you have lovely African violets, you want to get the right soil for what you want. The other one is, oh, sorry, that was orchid. That's the orchid. And if you want to look at the orchid soil, it's kind of fun. It's bark. It's pretty rough, pretty crude. And you want to say, really? This is what it's going to be? And it is. And when you use some of these larger pots like this and you water it, a lot drains out. Pick it up and put it back in again because it's not dirt. The African violet is a very precious, nice mix of soil just for the African violet. Okay. The other part of it, yeah, we can remove that, thank you. There's also what I call water. Here's a pot. It's just a lovely vase, and you want to put water in it, and certain plants will thrive in plain water, such as your ivy. The same idea as when you want to root a plant, and it grows a few little roots, they can stay there. And that's the solution when you want to have a pretty little flower in your bookcase. Doesn't have soil, it doesn't need anything, you don't care about overwatering, underwatering, bugs, anything. It just sits in the water. And you can use a number of lovely containers just to have rooted plants that will stay for a long, long time. Okay, that's good. Must have gotten trigger happy here. This one here, the trick with the dried coffee grounds. Also, when to fertilize. You could read what's on there, but for instance, the Christmas cactus gets fertilized in November. It's going to bloom very soon, so you want to be right before it blooms. You want to give it a little fertilizer. And the fertilizer this is referring to is the dried coffee grounds. Peace lilies, maybe you want to do that in the summer, right before they want to take off and bloom again. A jade would be in spring or summer, and a cyclamen is kind of like all year round. The caution is to use only a little bit of coffee, and here's a new one. Cinnamon, who knew? A little sprinkle of cinnamon does smell good, but it's also very drying. If you've ever added cinnamon when you're cooking, you'll notice it floats on top, but it doesn't take in the water very easily. So if you have an issue with pests, which we'll talk about very soon, or you tend to overwater and you say, oops, the cinnamon kind of forgives a lot of things. And you just sprinkle a little around the base of the plant, and it prevents some root rot. So let's talk about that watering. When do you water? It depends upon your finger. Test that soil, touch it. Get used to your plants. You can't say, I do it every Sunday. Well, you might get lucky for a while. But generally speaking, you really need to know, because the house environment changes, the seasons, the light changes, and the needs of the plant change. So it's hard to put it on a schedule. So do feel the soil to see if it's dry, 1 to almost 3 inches, which is almost your whole finger. So you want to really see, does it need to be watered or not? Maybe yes, maybe no. It's best to always water from below. Almost every plant is happier if it wicks from below. So that means it's in some kind of a dish. It's in a little container of some kind that you put the water in and watch the water just disappear. It goes up the plant. Really works well if you've got a wick in there. That wick might even be a sponge in the hole. Cut them down, make them fit, and that sponge will wick up the water so that it starts to go inside. Then the soil picks it up. Some of the plants really do need the humidity. And that's when you do put it in a kind of a saucer. But if you put it in the saucer, then the bottom of the plant is in the water. So that's why you elevate the plant on some gravel or something like the marbles or pretty little rocks, so that the water is there, but the pot itself doesn't sit in the water, it's elevated. The big one is water temperature. Who knew? If that water is too cold, I mean, I'm really cold, especially in the winter when you turn the cold water on and it comes out really cold, that'll shock your plant. Almost all of our house plants are actually tropical plants. They don't want freezing cold water. So do think about the pitcher of water that you're using, or the cup or the glass, whatever you're collecting water in. Let it sit for room temperature and then use it. If you have a true tropical plant like an orchid, it's best to use warm water. And I use the expression baby bottle warm, not very hot, just delightfully warm, and your plant will thank you for it. Now that we're talking about watering, what if it's too wet, which I will tell you is the thing. Anyone in the room who's ever had a friend or a neighbor say, oh, houseplants, I kill them, they die, they never make it. I just haven't got what it takes. That's because they love them too much water. Okay, again, what you need to do is test it. And then test the soil, and then you look at your plant. What does it look like? Well, I've actually brought one plant along. For anyone who wants to feel my plant at the right time. Lovely little plant, looks fine. However, if you feel it, it's soft, limp. It's not brittle. So if it's drooping, shouldn't I water it? Feel it, it's not brittle, it's soft. It's not mushy yet, but it is definitely soft. You want to say, no, feel that soil, a little too wet. So how do you know when to do it? Well, you can't always tell. A dry plant is has brown tips at the end. Okay, it's what I call brittle. They crumble, they crisp. They just fall apart like dry paper. Uh-oh, a little too dry. So the drooping could be either too heavy with water, too much water, or it's limp for exhaustion, it's hungry. So you really have to look at the plant and say, which way do I go on watering? If it was too wet, not only does it not look so wonderful, but it's inviting problems. The problems like mildew, which is from too wet, soil gnats, these little bugs, little fruit fly looking buggies that fly around your plant, they need the moisture. And if it's too wet, they will come. And then there's always root rot, which is very sad when you go to pick up your plant and it just kind of breaks off and mushes down and looks rotten. Yeah. So how do you know it's too dry? Well, the leaves, by the way, are yellow either way. Uh-oh, can't tell the difference. They look yellow. Too much, too little. Well, then you go to say, is it soft? Is it brittle? Is it mushy, etc. And then mostly you just touch it with your finger. The dry plants, who knew? Spider mites. They thrive they don't like moisture. They like a dry environment. And aphids actually go either way. But the aphids want a weaker plant. And the spider mites really want a weak, exhausted plant, which is the dry plant. And the answer, and then if it's just right, well, the plant I have here in the front is what I call just right. Stand at attention. It's upright. It feels good when you touch it. It's shiny when you look at it. It's pretty. So that's what you're really, really after. Now that you've got it pretty well situated, you need to put it somewhere. Well, you had in mind a place, but then when you bought the plant, which looked great in the store, you read the label and it says shade, or it says indirect light. All right, so you've got some choices here. Direct light, almost nothing like direct light, because it means no shades, no curtains, no barriers like a piece of furniture. It is light all the time. Well, there's a few plants that like that, like a cactus and some of the blooming plants, but most of them want indirect light. And indirect light is next to the window as well, but the light varies, the sun moves around, and it's not on the plant all the time. It could be under a lamp. Your African violets are perfect for that. They don't want the direct sunbeam, but they do like the light. So under a lamp would be wonderful. Then you've got daylight. Look around your room. Where is the daylight? I could put a plant here. I could put it there. Oh, there's light. It works almost anywhere in your house for indirect light. But if you have a special spot that wants the shade, and wherever you put that blooming plant, it didn't keep blooming because you put it on a shelf that was on an angle and it wasn't getting the daylight nearly as much as you thought. So shelves like things like ivy, things like a variety of things that are, well, I'll show you a picture of all the shade plants that would go well on a shelf. A bedroom. Many of our bedrooms are pretty dark, even in the daytime, because we've got the curtains. And that's the ideal place for a snake plant. Bathrooms, perfect for orchids. I love the bathroom for orchids. Orchids want that water in the air. So when you have a steamy shower, there's plenty of steam on the mirror. That steam is what the orchid thrives on. And just so that you know, you could put that cactus in the shower with you. Not to get rained on directly, but in the corner where the faucets are, it doesn't really get the direct water, but it's getting the splash over. It's a tropical rainforest. So when you take a shower, let's say once a week, take your flower in with you and just do your thing. And when you're out, take your orchid out and put it back on the bathroom windowsill. Here are a variety of plants which are kind of hard to read from a distance, but that picture is available on our website. And it will give you some more ideas for what you put on the shelf that is a little dark, what you put in the corner, which is a little bit more shaded. It's not available to the window light. That's where you want to put some of your shade plants. And all will be good. And actually, some of these plants are for the sun as well. There are some shade plants again. Kind of the backbone of shade plants is going to be your snake plant. Not that gorgeous when you just look at it, but I will show you at the end of my talk about mixing it in with other flowers, other plants, making a group planting, and even decorate your shade plant a little bit for the holidays. Give it a little pizzazz. But that shade plant is oxygenating your room. It's taking out poisonous things that are in your carpets, or it takes out the smell of paint when you've painted your room. These particular shade plants are amazing how they clean the air. So even though we kind of tend to go for the pretty plants that have flowers, those with the beautiful big green leaves are keeping us healthy. Here's another possibility, it's very few, for direct light. And they tend to be the cactus. The plant on the left is a rosemary. Who has a rosemary plant in their house? Smells good. We actually use it for cooking, and it does grow inside. Herbs do grow inside. And they're fun to have, and maybe in themselves, they're not what I think of as a beautiful special plant, but they're an auxiliary plant when you do a group setting. And many of the herbs kind of hang over, and they do look awfully pretty in a group. Oh, here we go with the pest. Okay, there are pests that come into the house, whether you like it or not. They're very similar to the pests that are outside. The good news is we can control them, so much easier. What I go through with my rose bushes is major. When I have the same mildew inside, it's so easy to control. The picture that you see, the one on the far left is going to be spider mites. The one in the middle is not a pest, it's simply dry, brittle leaf from underwatering. The orange little things on the leaf are aphids. And they're not always orange, they're green too, and they kind of blend in. And the bottom one is a large picture of a gnat. Where do they come from? They come from overwatered plants, almost all of them, because they're happy. They love the water. They like it when there's a lot of leaves because they're hiding in them. That gives them shade, gives them more of the environment that they like to be in. So the water and poor circulation. Outside, we have the wind. Inside, not so much. So inside, you have to, how do you promote wind? Well, you really can, but you can thin out, especially when you have a group and you've got a larger plant. That I have one like this that's about 3 feet by 3 feet, and it's pretty thick. So you want to start thinning things out if in fact if you don't have the insects, leave them alone, they're beautiful. But once you get a little insect infestation, be on it. So the soil fungus, definitely wet soil. Okay, soil gnats love the wet soil. then root rot speaks for itself, and mildew is very visible. It's white and it looks messy. So what do? Number one, drain the soil. Take it out of the pot. Sometimes it's root bound anyway. Just take it out and set it on a dish and let it just really dry out. Thin the foliage. Could scrape off the topsoil because some of these, like the gnats, are living in the soil. They're getting their nutrients from the soil as well, and they're laying their larvae. So scrape it off with your finger or a spoon and just get rid of it. You might want to put in something drying like sawdust, cinnamon, or even something that's going to be dry like my marbles or gravel. I used to love when there was a tropical fish store nearby, and they have pretty gravel, blues and yellows and reds, and that looks pretty under a plant as well as keeps it dry. Now that we're going to say, I really do have a problem here, I've got some bugs, what am I going to do? Well, let's clean off the plant. And to clean off the plant, I use Q-tips. I use cotton balls. And I dip them in vinegar and water, or plain vinegar, but vinegar and water solution. And now I'm cleaning my leaves with vinegar. That takes care of a lot of problems because it kills the mildew. Okay, the gnats don't like the smell of it, and sort of takes care of the problem. Now, vinegar is one thing. For mildew, people want to use baking soda. Works like a charm. So a teaspoon of baking soda in a container of water and spray it on, or use your cotton ball and wipe it off with baking soda. The trouble with a baking soda spray is that it's wet, and we've got a plant that's too wet. So you want to keep those leaves dry. So this is kind of the alcohol is another thing. You could dip in alcohol and it just kind of, shall we say, disinfects it. Not really, that's not the problem, but it dries. So once this solution goes over and sort of takes away the problem, it dries very, very quickly. You might want to use soap, and this is just dish soap. Put a few drops in water and spray it, or wash it with the cotton ball. And you're sort of taking off the surface nutrient that little bug wants. And just literally cleaning. For the gnats, I found that they like acid soil. And if they like acid soil, let's make it base. So I can use this baking soda and literally sprinkle it. It looks like white powder. Just sprinkle it on top of your soil. The gnats don't like it. And they want a wet acid soil. So the baking soda is sprinkled there. They're not liking it too much. Sure enough, it starts dissolving and gets into the soil, changing the top of the soil into more of a base, which is not happy for those gnats. Okay, this neem oil is often advertised as a way to get rid of a lot of these insects. The problem with neem oil, which by the way, it does work, it's a contact only, it's not preventive. So if in fact you're out there with your rose bushes, it's too much to take care of, so then you want to spray your plant. It's going to kill the spider mites, it's going to kill the gnats, it's going to kill the aphids, because that oily surface, they just can't eat the plant. It just puts up a barrier. But it doesn't work preventive, and you got to do it a lot. Another trick would be to use sticky strips, a two-sided Scotch tape, or you actually go and get something in the store that is like to catch flies. You want something sticky, and that sticky means that the little gnat lands on it and can take off again. It is captured. And in a way, it's kind of fun. You can see how many you've got. And when you're tired of looking at them, you throw it away. But the sticky strips actually does work. And if you really get aggressive, you can put them on your fingers and say, gotcha, 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 and pick them all up. Okay, so the dry soil, this is kind of repeating myself, so it's, I didn't mention over fertilized plants have problems. The leaves get dry, they get brittle, they just don't look very good anymore because it's over fertilizing. And sometimes you could see a lot of whiteness around the root of your plant when you fertilize too much. So just be aware of that. Some plants, many plants are chlorine sensitive. I happen to have well water, so I don't have chlorine in my water. But if you're city water and you have chlorine, or you're in another location where they have more chlorine than others, you could smell the chlorine. My kids used to say they've got swimming pool water here because the water is chlorinated. Your plants will show that. To prevent a problem and a burning of your plant, have your pitcher of water that you're going to use, let it sit out overnight. And the chlorine just goes out into the air, and the next day you could water your plant. For dry soil, what is the answer? And it's to water your plant more regularly. By the way, your plant is much more forgiving if you underwatered. When you see a peace plant, after you've been on vacation, you come home and you think, oh no, everything is like, I'm seriously laying over, like on the ground, laying over. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that one and it's going to be dead. Watch the miracle. A little bit of water and it literally rises up. Very forgiving. Many of your plants are much more forgiving if you've underwatered. If in fact you've over fertilized and you think, whoops, shouldn't have done that, the answer is flush it. Just put it in the sink, put some water in, let it drain, put some water in, let it drain, and flush it out. So you're flushing out that fertilizer, and you haven't killed your plant. One of the other tricks that I would use for when you have a pest infestation is to vacuum your plant. Who knew? But you can have a little hand vac and carefully go over your plant and it'll suck up those aphids. And it'll get the spider mites and the little webs. And now that you're all excited because it works, take your little vacuum cleaner outside and do your rose bushes at the same time. It really does a nice job. I'm asking people when they have houseplants to be just very flexible. In a way, the people who love houseplants are what I call controlling personalities, because you have control of where you put it, when do you water it, all kinds of control that you do not have in your garden. Once it's planted and the roots are in and it's overgrown, you don't have any control. Inside you do. But now that you are controlling the environment, to be flexible, like the opposite. Oh, I know I do it on Sunday, but they don't need it today. I'll do it tomorrow. That's the attitude that you need to have a healthy health plan. I brought a few things with me. It's kind of dark in here, it's hard to tell, but this is a begonia. And I wanted you at the end of all of this to feel like it's time to have some fun with my health plan. They don't all have to be in their cute little pot on their spot. Blend them, mix them up, put them in a decorative container, and decorate them for the holidays. This one's decorated for Valentine. This one is, and by the way, it's a little dark. I hope you can see my lights, but I put little lights in there just for fun. And I have artificial flowers in the one that's decorated for springtime. Thank you. Oh, that's good. So that my home people can see that better. But this one does have some artificial flowers in it, and it's just enough to kind of spring it up. And it's kind of fun when people go to sniff the flower, but because the rest of it seems real. So there you go. Let me think if there's anything I might have skipped here. I think that's about all. My time is probably up. I'm available for questions. Are they going to have a break after this?
Yeah. Let me